such as the Sandy Hook thing, Boston. I mean, whatever. If it's interesting and if it's unsolved and if it looked wrong and if the mainstream media went to too much trouble to cover it up and to the point where it became transparently ludicrous, then we would really focus on that stuff. And we're about to speak with a man who has the most extraordinary career. I'm telling you, it's hard to know where to start. His name is Field McConnell. And just to give you an idea of some of the things we're going to speak about today, about 9/11 and its reliance on Boeing uninterruptible autopilots, or maybe MH-370, MH-17, the global pedophile ring of Hillary and Christine Marcy, a historic view of pedophilia as a control mechanism, Serco's stranglehold on U.S. military and government, Baker's dozen of remote control aircraft, M4H, linkage of Warren Buffett and Wells Fargo to 9/11 and foreign control of McCain and Mitch McConnell. That's not too much of a stretch, is it? He's flown just about everything that seems like it would be really fun to fly. But let me just take you through a little of it here, because there's a lot of it. Studied at the United States Naval Academy, graduating June 9/71. Commissioned Second Lieutenant, United States Marine Corps, guarantee of aviation military operational specialty. 71 to 72, USMC, the basic school. Qualified 0301 infantry platoon commander. 72 to February 72 to June 72, attended U.S. Naval Aviation Indoctrination and Primary Flight Training at the Naval Air Station, Pensacola, Florida, and then attended U.S. Naval Basic Jet Training, and then attended U.S. Naval Advanced Jet Training, and then was assigned to a VMA 102, VMFA 101, Marine Corps Air Station, Yuma, Arizona, C-130 Combat Crew Training, Little Rock. This is amazing. February 74 to October 74, assigned to Marine Aerial Refueler Transport Squadron 352, El Toro, California, flying a KC-130F. 74 to 77, assigned to U.S. Naval Training Squadron 21, Chase Field, Naval Air Station, Beeville, Texas, instructor pilot, teaching advanced jet training syllabus. Resigned from the U.S. Marine Corps when recruited by North Dakota Air National Guard in Fargo to fly the F-4D with the 178th Fighter Interceptor Squadron. 1978, William Tell, the Worldwide Fighter Competition. I got to find out how he did on that. Did he let that gun off past the fault line? We'll find out. Hired by North Central Airlines on 2nd November 78, flew a Convair 580. Convair, there's a name you don't hear very much, flew it domestically. Then North Central merged with Southern Airways to become Republic Airlines in 79. He's flown DC-9s, MD-80s, 727s, and that Convair 580 domestically. Republic Airlines was bought by Northwest Airlines, and he then flew the 727, DC-10, and Airbus 320 domestic and international flights. Okay, yeah, and then 1986, William Tell, Worldwide Fighter Competition. North Dakota ANG, Air National Guard, transitioned from F-4 Phantom to F-16 Fighting Falcon in 1990 and retired from the Air National Guard in 93 with final F-16 flight on Pearl Harbor Day 92. Refused to serve under William Jefferson Clinton per information given him by General Hunter H. Harris IV, USAF, who had secured his appointment to Annapolis. But there's ever so much more. This goes on for about 2 meters of really small print. His website is abledanger.net. There's another one, abledanger.org. One is run here in the States, the other is run overseas. And that's ABEL Danger. Do not write ABLE Danger, or it will not take you where you want to go. I know, because I tried it. And here he is, Field McConnell. How are you, sir? Welcome to the program.
I'm very good. And when I was hearing you recount my career, I just about fell asleep because it sounds so boring to me. But I've been really blessed to have the background I have, and it has not been my accomplishment. God has steered me every step of the way, and he's going to continue to do that. So how can I accommodate you today, John?
Well, I'm curious. This is a little bit personal. If you don't want to answer it, it's okay with me. But there's got to be a story behind your first name, because I've never met any man with first name of Field. How'd you happen to have that handle?
Frankly, I'm glad you asked me that. My name, Field, and I have no middle name, but my father was a POW in Japan, and he was a bachelor, and his best friend was a Marine Corps infantry officer whose last name was Harris. And the man named Harris, the Marine, these two bachelors talked about their families, and since neither were married, it was the families they grew up in. But the Captain Harris in the Marine Corps, who was 6'10", and the Japanese were not very gracious hosts at the POW camp. Some other names that you'd be aware of from my father's POW camp, which was Ofuna, O-F-U-N-A, were Louis Zamperini, who inspired the movie Unbroken, and also Pappy Boyington. But my father's friend, Bill Harris, was talking about his father, and his father was a Marine Lieutenant General who, during World War II, was an aviator. And when my father heard the name Field Harris, he said, well, we're probably going to die here in POW camp, but if I ever get out of this place, and I ever get married, and I ever have a kid, and the kid is a male, I'm going to name him after your father. So I got named after Field Harris, and I, like you, and I'm 67 years old, John, but I've never met another Field. I met a guy once who went by Field, and I questioned him on it, and it turns out his real name was Fielding, F-I-E-L-D-I-N-G, and I don't blame him for dropping the ending, but that's the true story of my name, and I'm really glad you asked.
You know, I didn't know Pappy Boyington wound up in a POW camp. Is that what happened? Black Sheep Squadron Commander and all that?
Yes, he was at Ofuna, which is where my dad was. My dad was a complete nobody, but they had some high visibility guys, Louis Zamperini and Pappy Boyington. And once the politically motivated camp commander at Ofuna figured out that Pappy Boyington was there, he got upgraded to a better POW experience elsewhere. Sort of reminds me of John McCain. But Louis Zamperini, when the camp commander found out that he was an Olympian from the 1936 Berlin Games, that guy got elevated to a better POW experience. But my father, who was 6'3", and the 6'10" Marine named Bill Harris got physically abused because they were so much taller than their Japanese host.
Yeah, well, that's people don't understand they don't understand, and maybe they don't want to understand the cruelty that was inflicted upon POWs at the hands of the Japanese. There wasn't any Geneva man going to show up, that's for sure.
Well, you know, war itself is unnecessary in my estimation and cruel, and I'm somewhat ashamed of our country for some of the things we've done, but I also feel vicariously offended for my father that a bunch of short little guys like Norman Mineta comes to mind. You may remember the name Norman Mineta, but he has a real bad attitude about America. And, you know, I don't think I'm jingoistic or nationalistic. It's just I have the good fortune to be born to the United States. And I feel a deep sense of obligation to speak the truth about the United States and our relationships with other nations. And if I know the truth, I'm going to speak it. And if somebody doesn't like it, well, then I'll probably be punished. But I've got a great reward waiting for me in heaven. So I'm somewhat fearless in that regard.
You put out 3 books just last year: Gadget Bent, Foul, BVR, and Lemon Squeeze. What is BVR?
It's a fighter pilot term, and I'm holding it up right now. Here's the cover of it. What this is about is BVR is a fighter pilot term. It stands for Beyond Visual Range.
Right.
And the context in which I use it is I'm claiming, and by the way, I'm claiming in writing, and here's the 3 books you just alluded to, but I'm claiming who's responsible for all of these abominations. For instance, and by the way, I'll get to the punchline. I know you're in Texas, and I'm wearing a Texas shirt, and I know George H.W. Bush is from Texas, but he's got his signature all over a bunch of bad things, including 9/11 and including Aero Air 1285, where 256 innocent people were murdered because G.H.W. Bush did not want that aircraft to enter U.S. airspace. And he's got his fingerprints on the USS Iowa explosion. And a lot of people, I would say the vast majority of people in America, cannot remember the USS Iowa explosion, and they cannot remember if they ever heard about Aero Air 1285, But I really appreciate your willingness to talk about these types of things, because as we're watching this new Trump administration work through the wrinkles of who's on his team and who's a mole, and when I say we, there's no ego here, because the vast majority of what I'm credited with is done by others. But the logic is my head is squarely on the guillotine, and I'm just waiting for somebody to drop the blade. But as long as, I'm somewhat exposed, well, the more people that want to get information out, and a perfect example is you just made a comment about Boeing uninterruptible autopilot. The day that Malaysia 370 went missing, Able Danger put out a 5-minute and 40-second YouTube called Boeing Uninterruptible Autopilot, and that the very same day the airplane went missing, which, by the way, it never was missing, but we explained to the world what had happened to it, and people think that some of us are smart. No, we're not. We're just experienced. I mean, everyone listening to your show, John, has experience that I don't have, and I've got some experience that they don't have, and if we can get together and share information, I truly believe we not only can, but I do believe we will make the world itself a better place. And I think that's happening right in front of our eyes today.
I just typed in Able Danger. Remember, folks, ABEL Danger. And I'm seeing all kinds of things here. For example, Trump wiretapped a zillion times by the Hammer, Brennan's, and Clapper's secret computer system by Mary, and then it goes ... And so just take us back to the origin of that expression, Able Danger. What is or what was Able Danger?
Okay, I'll start with what Able Danger was. During the Bill Clinton years, there was a U.S. Army office called ABLE Danger, where they were tasked with monitoring emerging threats against the United States of America. You may have heard of the lady whose name's escaping me right now, but it'll come back. But she speaks Iranian. Farsi, F-A-R-S-I. Sybil Edmonds is her name. She got fired from the FBI because, as someone who could listen in both Farsi and Urdu, she picked up drum beats or chatter about an emerging threat to the United States of America prior to 9/11 that involved aircraft. And Bill Clinton, as president, shut down that office. This is, whenever I express an opinion, I'll say it's an opinion, because I'm going to express some facts, a vast majority of facts, but occasionally I will have an opinion, and this is only my opinion. But I believe Sybil Edmonds was taken out of her position at FBI because she posed a threat to the people who put on the 9/11 false flag. And I've traveled the world, literally, and I've never met anybody that thinks 9/11 wasn't done by one or two teams. Team number one was the Muslim patsies, and team number two was the U.S. government, and both of those arguments are void or failures. It was a complex consortium of people, but it certainly involved the Clinton White House. It involved Hillary, and Hillary and my sister, Christine Marcy, have a pretty ugly history, and everything they touch turns to an abuse of humans, including the attack of 9/11. So ABEL Danger was the brainchild of the Canadian Brit. There's a British man who lives in British Columbia, Canada, named David Hawkins, who's about 6 years older than I am. And we got put together, some would say by luck, some would say by serendipity. No, we got put together by God. Now, I have a different view of spiritual things than David does, but nobody could ever have put the two of us together except God. And we've been working for 10 years and 4 months exposing some of the most evil and vile things that have been done to we, the global commoners, by they, the global elitist. And I haven't read a definition of elitist that pleases me. But as far as I'm concerned, anybody who thinks they are elite, they certainly do not know God. Over to you, John.
All right, well, let's talk about that aircraft that nobody knows about, and let's talk about the USS Iowa, is that it?
Yes, that was the battleship that, and I can't remember off the top of my head what year it was, but I wrote a book about it. I was writing books at the rate of one per 30 days, and I could do that for the rest of my life. And I believe within the next year, I will relocate down to Texas, and I will be pumping out a book every 60 days, because it's very easy to write if you know what you're writing about. And as far as the USS Iowa explosion, when the thing happened, they blamed it on a man who they said was a closet gay. But, you know, who are they? Well, the people that are doing all this, the global elitists, and there's not very many people in that group. And we'll probably name a good number of them before we're done today. But what really happened was the captain of the USS Iowa, on the day they had the event where I believe 47 sailors died, they were trying to impress some higher up, and they put too much of a charge. They have charge bags that they load into the gun before they stick the projectile in or after. But anyway, they had too much explosion in there because they were trying to demonstrate the long range of this 16-inch gun on the Iowa. And they blew up 47 men, and they blamed it on somebody. They just probably picked a random name of a dead crew member and said he was gay. Well, this is exactly what they did in the case of Germanwings 9525, where they said the co-pilot intentionally drove that Airbus into the ground. That's not true. And within 30 days of Germanwings 9525, I went over to Heidelberg, Germany, and did a 1 hour and 6 minute presentation on how it was impossible. But in that case, they said Andreas Lubitz, the young, inexperienced co-pilot, was gay. Well, what does that have to do with it? First of all, if he was gay, it's remarkable because he had a pregnant girlfriend on the day he died.
Well, same deal with J. Christopher Stevens, the ambassador to Libya. They put a smear campaign him out about him being gay. Of course, we talked with his fiancée, Lydie Denier, who said, "I assure you he wasn't gay." Brought her right on this program, so that shot that down pretty quick in my view.
Well, sure, I just learned something. I didn't know that, but the fact that those guys were killed really bothers me, because I really do know a great deal about Hillary Rodham, whatever that name is, Rodham Clinton, and I don't know anything that's good. And I think our nation, and I'm not political, you'll never find me doing anything political, but I do speak the truth. And the truth is Hillary Clinton needs to be in jail about 30 years ago. But it's not over till the fat lady sings. And I think she might be clearing her voice now, because if Donald Trump is who he campaigned as, he's going to be compelled to take care of Hillary Clinton. That's my opinion, not a fact.
I just got a bulletin here, and it's it came to me through Ken. Here we go. Field McConnell, United States Marine and Global Operations Director of Able Dangerous, links Serco's alleged use of demon face recognition software to search for, track, and blackmail pedophile news groups through the Federal Bridge to the Pine Gap. That's in Australia, folks. Infrared search and track, the IRST network, allegedly developed by Lockheed Martin for the Boeing headquarters in Chicago and used by Serco air traffic controllers to hack Obama's Red Switch network and land MH-370 at Diego Garcia. I always thought that damn thing landed at Diego Garcia. I didn't know, but looking at a map, I thought, okay, the information about this flight is just a little bit too confused, a little bit too stupid. I bet that's where it is. Is that where it landed?
Yes, that is where it landed, but that's not where it is.
Oh,
because let me tell you where it is. And this is really, well, first of all, everything that Able Danger, our organization, everything we investigate is an abomination against humanity. But I have the very good fortune, and I will say blessed, that I predicted Malaysia 17, and I predicted it in writing on the 29th of March of 2014.
You think the number got changed, don't you?
You mean the registration number on the front of the aircraft?
Yeah.
I do, and but fortunately, I predicted that it would go down, meaning the airframe that made up the flight. The flight number is MH-370, but the airframe had a registration number, which off the top of my head was 9 Mike Romeo Oscar, 9 MMRO. I could be off one letter. But anyway, you can just take paint and put a new number on the nose gear door and the tail of the aircraft. You can change logbooks. You can pretty much virtually change the aircraft from one identity to make it into a clone of itself, when actually it is itself. Now, if that's confusing, let me just tell you what I predicted on the 29th of March. As you'll recall, Malaysia 370 went to Diego Garcia on the 8th of March, and we reported that on the 8th of March. But when Malaysia contacted me via phone on the 22nd of March of 2014, the man that contacted me, who was a representative of the previous administration, the previous president or prime minister of Malaysia was Dr. Mahathir Muhammad, which is really a mouthful. It's also hard to spell. But he was a very good leader, and for 22 years, he really put Malaysia on the global map. However, the current leader down there, whose name is Najib Razib, he's getting exposed for a lot of things, and the central issue in his case is Malaysia 370. But when the previous administration contacted me on Saturday, the 22nd of March 2014, the gentleman that I spoke with asked me if I'd be willing to travel to Malaysia and explain it to him face to face, because they were stunned that Able Danger solved the issue the same day it happened. And I said, well, don't be stunned. I mean, it's the same people doing the same thing over and over. And so all we have to do as Able Danger, all we have to do is recognize the pattern, and then everything else falls right into place. But the thing that I'm so happy about, I don't want to take credit for it, but whatever inspired me to put into writing on the 29th of March, which was 1 week to the day after I got the call from Malaysia, I put in writing that when I were to go to Malaysia, I would tell them the 2 modifications to that Boeing 777 that were illegal, and if they didn't share those modifications with the global media, then they should fully expect, and this is a verbatim quote, John, they should firmly expect that they would suffer a second explosive event no later than 1900, which means 7 p.m. in the evening, 1900 on the 17th of July of 2014. Well, at about 1735 on the 17th of July of 2014, Malaysia 17 was allegedly shot down by, name anything you want to. They blamed it on almost everyone except the people that did it. But Malaysia 17, the airframe, was the airframe from Malaysia 370, and they had to get rid of the airframe because they'd said it had gone into the South Indian Ocean, and yet they couldn't find it. In almost 3 years, they searched from the day it went down until some date in December of 16 or January of 17. And if you want to hang that failed search on anyone, I'd suggest we start with Australia, because they were in charge of the search. And if I know the airplane was never missing, the Australians, and I'll give you some names, Angus Houston and Warren Truss, if I know the plane wasn't missing, they surely knew the plane wasn't missing. So why are they misleading the world, and why are they doling out cruel and unusual punishment to the survivors of the 203 souls that perished on the morning of the 8th of March of 2014. Now, notice I said they perished. Yeah, they did. They were dead. But the aircraft landed safely at Diego Garcia. How's that for an answer, John?
Well, so who are we thinking was on board these aircraft that made them so important? I heard there were some tech people on 370, but I didn't hear much about 17.
Well, let's do this in the reverse order. Malaysia 17 do you recall, and this is not a test, a lot of people, can read stuff or see it on TV, and yet if it doesn't make sense, they forget it. But the first responders to Malaysia 17, and there was a Russian-speaking woman named Anna who responded just because it happened in her neighborhood. And she went over there with a video camera, and she was saying in Russian, which I don't speak, although I did spend a year flying in Kazakhstan, but that's another story. I hope we get around to that. But the Russian first responder lady named Anna, she was putting her camera on these bodies, which were intact. Now, keep in mind the aircraft was operating in the mid-30,000 range, like 33 or 31,000. And supposedly, according to the media, the airplane was blown apart, and yet these bodies were intact when they hit the ground. So something's not right here. But what's even more not right was the fact that a majority of the bodies were decomposed. Now, I think in your background, don't you have some aviation experience, John?
I do. I've flown a whole bunch of different private aircraft, and I guess my most exciting one was an L-29 Delphin, which is just dangerous enough to kill you, but you can play Top Gun for a while.
Yeah, it's a Czechoslovakian trainer, true?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure we're going to meet because I think you're down in Texas somewhere, and I think I'm going to be down there. In fact, I'm wearing a Texas shirt and a Texas T-shirt because even though my derriere is in Wisconsin, my heart's in Texas. And
come on down.
Well, I fully intend to. Are you anywhere near Dallas-Fort Worth?
No, I'm right in the middle of Dallas. I'm right over here, about a 5-minute drive from Kennedy Central, and I find it ironic that one of the biggest freeways over here is named after Lyndon Johnson, but there's no mention of Kennedy anywhere around here.
Well, that brings up the Dallas Cowboys, because the reason the Dallas Cowboys were created was to get the bad taste out of America's mouth regarding John F. Kennedy. And once again, I don't like to bring up these names over and over, but when you talk about Kennedy, you got to talk about G.H.W. Bush.
Oh, absolutely, positively. And isn't it funny, the Cowboys always play on Thanksgiving Day? Always.
Well, that's